And here's the Patchwork spinner, and we'll see what we get. Technique. Okay, that's not too bad. A Patchwork Technique. I'll just get my supplies. What have we got then? Patchwork. Okay. Now we've got to spin the other wheel. Hi, Amanda here from Patchwork and Papercraft, and I thought we'd do part 3 of Let the Wheel Decide. But before I do that, I just want to give you a little bit of a health update. I've not been well this last couple of weeks. I've got a problem with my gallbladder, and they're going to be removing that in an operation next week, so I may not be able to put out a video next week. That'll be the week of the 20th of February? Yes, 20th of February 2026. However, for this week, let's find out what the wheel decides. Well, there you have it. We're doing patchwork and technique. Okay, well, a good technique is probably the half square triangle. And we'll start off with what in the heck is a half square triangle? Because a half of a square is a rectangle, not a triangle. A half of a triangle is just a smaller triangle. It's not a square. So half square triangle doesn't really make a lot of sense on the surface. However, what it stands for is a half and half coloured square made from 2 same size triangles. But you couldn't possibly say all that lot all the time, so we just call them half square triangles. Now, there are lots of ways of making half square triangles, and I'm going to show you 4 methods, I think. 1, 2, 3, yep, 4 different methods. It's up to you which one you use, depending on how many triangles you need. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Okay, method number 1. This is the original method. You get 2 little squares, and the size of your square is your finished size, roughly. You draw a diagonal, and then these squares aren't cut very well, but it doesn't really matter, I don't suppose, for the purposes of this. And then we simply stitch down the centre line. Then we take some scissors. Where have my scissors disappeared to? Goodness knows. Oh well, I'll use these little ones, they'll do. And you just simply trim it away, approximately 1/4 of an inch away from your stitch line. This bit becomes rubbish or waste. You open it up, and there we have a half square triangle. A half and half coloured square made from 2 triangles. Okay, that's pretty tedious method if you want to make lots and lots of them. So we've got various other ways of making a few more. Slightly larger square this time, only because that's what I had. Now this is a 4-inch square. Or is it a 5-inch? Let's have a quick check, just so I know what I'm talking about. Yep, it's a 4-inch square. And again, you draw the diagonal, but this time you're going to sew on that side and on this side, 1/4 of an inch on each side. So that puts it there. What a brilliant view I've given you of this, but I'll adjust that in a moment. Might help. So there we go, I've sewn each side of the line. And now we cut along the line on that line, because we've sewn 1/4 inch either side. And what you're left with when you open them up, finger press them, and then of course you have to iron them, is 2 identical half square triangles, because if you turn them round, there we go, 2 identical half square triangles. But if you want more than that, let's say you want 4, here's another 2. Now this time these are 5-inch ones. Now this time I'm going to sew all the way round the edge, 1/4 inch from the end, and you can pivot if you want, or you can come off and start again. Two sides. Three sides. 4 sides. So I've gone all the way around the outside, and now you have to cut the diagonals. Get my big scissors out, I think. There they are. For this. And you can of course draw it. Cool. Looks like my scissors require sharpening. You can of course do this with a rotary cutter, but to do that would mean I'd have to move the camera and faff about, so I thought I'd just use my scissors. Won't be as accurate of course. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 all the same, and there we go. And each of these has ended up at 3 and a little bit inches. Just double checking on another one. Yeah, 3 1/4 roughly inches each of those. Yep. So there we go. 5-inch squares gives you 3 1/4. Well, you'd to trim them nice and square, you'd probably get 3-inch squares out of those. Okay, but what if you want more than that? Well, you can get 8 at a time. How do you get 8 at a time? Well, to get 8 at a time, you get, these are bigger squares, these are 10-inch squares this time. Again, they're right sides facing. And you mark the diagonals, both diagonals on them. And now we're going to sew on both sides of both diagonals at 1/4 inch. Going to vibrate a bit, I'm afraid. This sleeve. That's one. Why are these? Grief, I cut these really badly. which means that that diagonal is not a diagonal. So I shall have to go from the actual diagonal. Having done that, we then cut along the diagonals, but we also cut that way and that way, straight up the middle. So we'll do that first. Again, you can use a rotary cutter and take your time and get it far more accurate than this. But for the purposes of this, this is good enough, right? So having cut straight lines, I'm just going to even this up a bit because my back square was a lot bigger than the front one for some odd reason. Oh, that's interesting. It hasn't sewn. Why hasn't it sewn? Have a guess why. My bobbin's run out. So let's put a new bobbin in quickly. This is doesn't have an awful lot on it, but it should have enough to finish this. There we go. Through you come. Come here. That's better. And then we cut between our two diagonal stitch lines. Again, you'd need to square these. I won't bother pressing all of them, I'll just show you. You see, you open it up, and as before, we have a half square triangle. Now these ones have come up at 5 inches. Yeah, try another one. Oh, we're trying another one to come up at 4.5. That's because my squares weren't square. Yeah, between 4.5 and 5. So you're probably, I mean, I'd square these to 4.5. Right, so that makes 8. But that's not enough. Okay, still not enough? Well, in that case, we can make 16 at a time. I'm just double checking on my instructions so I don't mess it up. Now this time I've got a background and a blue. Again, these are 10-inch squares, and I hope these are properly 10-inch squares this time. Let's see. It's 10 that way. Yeah, these would appear to be proper 10-inch squares. Now this time what I've done is I've measured along one side to 5. I've done the same at the opposite end, and I've joined them together. So I've got lines directly down the centre vertically and horizontally. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch either side, or sorry, both sides of both of those, and then all the way around the outside. So this one. Making some funny noises all of a sudden. Hopefully it's all right. Last side. There we go. Right, come with me over to the cutting table. You'll see the messy room. Ooh, it's in a hell of a state, this room, but then I've not been well enough to sort it out. There we go. There we go. Let's see if I can adjust it a little bit so you can see it. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut along the diagonals, and down the centres of those two lines that we drew earlier. Oops, it's all come apart, doesn't matter, I can do it. Separately. This is why you do the diagonals first, so if they do all come out of contact with one another, you can still do it. There we go. Right. And having done that, we're then going to cut each of these in half. If you want to know how to, the easiest way is to line up the edge of your ruler to the point and bring it down until one of your cross bars lines up along the bottom edge. Oopsie. If you do that, it's going to be square. Well, as square as it can be with the your stitching. Your stitching is wildly out, so will your squares be. But they're fairly forgiving. I mean, if you've made a real mess of your square of your stitching, you know, and some 1/4 of an inch and some are even 1/2 an inch, you just cut your overall squares that much smaller. Square them up to the size of your smallest, and you'll still have loads of squares that are all the same. There we go. That's a bit out of shot there. Doesn't matter. Excuse the strange noises, I'm in a lot of pain. And then you're going to say, well, what on earth are you going to use these things for? Well, I'll show you in a second, once I've opened them all. I mean, you should really iron them, but I'm just going to finger press them and hope for the best for now. The other thing is, once you have finger pressed them, you'll notice there's a little bit sticking out the edges. That little bit needs cutting off. It's often called a dog ear. I don't know why. But it is. So you just snip them off. Level with the rest of the square. I'm not really going to worry about it for the rest of these. You'll get the general idea. I'm going to lay them out and show you a layout. There's hundreds and hundreds of different layouts of these. If you play, you can find all sorts of different interesting layouts. This is just going to be one of them. So that makes 16. Each of these, by the way, is just over 3.25 or thereabouts inches square. So if we put these in the centre here so that they alternate in colour, radiating out from a point, that is called a pinwheel. Move it up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. If I then take some more and I put them, that's the best way. Like that, is it? Do you know, I'm not entirely sure. Let me see. How did I decide I was going to do these? Oh, yeah, excuse me as I go and throw everything all over the place. Whew. Yes, so what I've done on that one is I'm putting like with like. And that one there, is that right? That way, that's why I'm getting muddled. It's making a sort of a pointy bit. That one in there. Let me just lay these out quickly, and then you'll be able to see roughly what it looks. I mean, it won't look perfect because of course I've not ironed them. Also, I think I've done something wrong as well here. No, maybe not. Swap these out for ones that are laying flat or flatter. There we go. And then you'd have background ones, in this case the white ones, in the four corners, and you've got a sort of a star, and that star's called a Des Moines star. But there are loads and loads of different layouts that you could use. Well, there you have it. That's the half square triangle, made relatively easy. I hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, bye.